You know what amazes me? People will lawyer up before signing a sketchy business deal. But the second a cop pulls them over or starts investigating them, suddenly they decide, now's my time. I should become the most helpful person in America. Now I will tell the full story. And that's how people get cooked. Here's what people get wrong. Most people do not talk to police because they're guilty. They talk to police because they're human. And that's the part everybody misses. When a police officer starts asking questions, your brain does not experience that moment like a courtroom. It experiences it like a social problem. You want to smooth things over. You want to look normal. You want to look respectful. You want to prove that you are not a bad guy. And most people think that the way to do that is simple. Let me just explain. That instinct is natural. It's also dangerous because you think you're having a conversation. The police may think they are collecting evidence. That gap right there, that gap wrecks people every single day. And here's the really twisted part. A lot of the people who talk the most are innocent. Why? Because innocent people tend to believe in the power of the truth. They think, I didn't do anything wrong, so if I just explain what happened, the officer will realize that. I've got nothing to hide. The truth is on my side. That sounds reasonable, I get it. But police investigations are not graded on whether you are morally innocent. They are built on statements, details, timelines, inconsistencies, admissions, and impressions. So the innocent person sits there thinking, I'm safe because I'm telling the truth. Meanwhile, he's guessing on times, estimating distances, misspeaking, filling the silence, saying things like, I think, maybe, probably, I guess. And now the officer hears uncertainty, inconsistency, and opportunity. That's what people don't understand. The truth is not self-executing. You may be telling the truth and still creating problems for yourself with every extra sentence. And let me tell you what's really going on. People are trying to solve the wrong problem. They think the problem is, how do I beat this case right now? No. In the moment, your brain is focused on, how do I make this the least awkward as possible? How do I stop this officer from suspecting me? How do I seem cooperative? How do I get out of the situation in the next 60 seconds? Those are totally different objectives. Human beings are wired to reduce immediate pressure. That's why we babble. That's why we volunteer. That's why we try to explain things nobody asked us to explain. That's why we try to start looking innocent instead of acting intelligently, because immediate attention feels huge. Future legal consequences seem so very far away. So they trade tomorrow's defense for today's emotional relief, and they do it sentence by sentence. Now let's talk about the traffic stop, because that is where people really get themselves into trouble. A traffic stop is stressful, but it kind of feels casual because everybody experiences them. It feels temporary. It feels public. It feels like roadside small talk. The officer walks up and says, where are you coming from? Where are you headed? Have you had anything to drink tonight? Do you know why I pulled you over? How fast do you think you were going? And people answer like they're chatting with a neighbor. Those questions are not small talk. Those questions can build knowledge, intent, timeline, impairment, and inconsistency. Prosecutors love inconsistency. And there's another reason people get fooled. A lot of drivers think if they have not been read their Miranda rights, well, then this can't be that serious. That is not how this works. And we have other videos on Miranda rights. As a general rule, an ordinary traffic stop does not automatically count as Miranda custody and does not need the reading of Miranda rights, which is exactly why roadside questioning often feels casual when it still can become very important later. So the driver thinks, well, if this was serious, they had to read me my Miranda rights. No, that is not true. Now, here's another psychological trap. People think staying quiet makes them look guilty. And that fear is powerful. They think, if I don't answer, the officer's gonna think I did something. If I ask for a lawyer, I'm gonna look guilty. If I stop talking, it's gonna make me look suspicious. So they talk not because it's smart, but because they're trying to avoid the appearance of guilt. And that fear is not necessarily crazy. There is research showing that people really do tend to judge suspects who invoke their rights or remain silent as more suspicious and more likely to be guilty than suspects who wave and talk. Think about how messed up that is. The law gives you the right to remain silent, but human psychology often tries punishing you for using it. That is one reason why people keep talking. They're trying to manage perception. But your job is not to win an Oscar for the most cooperative person at a traffic stop. Your job is to protect yourself. And that is why in the court of law, the jury will never hear the suspect chose to remain silent or the suspect invoked his Fifth Amendment rights. The jury will never hear that in a court of law. But the stress takes over. And that's where good people get hurt. Because stress does not make you sound polished. Stress, quite frankly, makes you sound weird. You ramble, you repeat yourself, you forget what order things happened in. You try to correct yourself. You add details that you did not need to add. You say, no, wait, that's not what I meant. You laugh at the wrong time. You get defensive. You get overly friendly. And police are trained to notice behavior, especially odd behavior. So now, all of a sudden, your normal human stress responses start getting interpreted as meaningful. And that's when people say, man, I was just nervous. Yeah, and nervous people talk too much. That is exactly why, well, I'll just clear this up later, is such a dangerous mindset. Because the more emotional you get, the less precise your language gets. And in criminal cases, imprecise language is a gift to the government. And once you start talking, another problem shows up. You are now committed to the story. Now you feel like you have to keep going. Now you have to explain the explanation. Now you have to clean up the last sentence with 3 more sentences. Now you are locked into details that you should have never volunteered in the first place. And every new detail creates risk, not because you're lying, but because memory is imperfect, language is imperfect, but stress, well, that's very real. And once an investigator starts leaning towards guilt, every ambiguity starts looking worse. That's how people talk themselves from possible witness to possible suspect, not with one dramatic confession, with 20 little unnecessary statements. That's how it usually happens. Death by 1,000 helpful comments. So what should people actually understand? This right here. You can be respectful without being chatty. You can be calm without being cooperative in the way they want. You can be polite without becoming a witness against yourself. You can comply with lawful instructions without narrating your life story. That is the key distinction. A lot of people think being cooperative means answering every question. No, there is a difference between being respectful and helping build the case. Those are not the same thing. That's really the whole lesson of this video. People love talking to police because talking feels human. Talking feels innocent. Talking feels productive. Talking feels like taking control. But when the police suspect you, talking is often the most dangerous thing in the room. So the next time you see somebody and they say, well, I talked to the police because I just wanted to clear things up, understand what really happened. They were trying to solve a social problem in a legal situation. They were trying to reduce the pressure. They were trying to look innocent. They were trying to seem normal. They were trying to avoid looking guilty by talking. And in doing that, they may have made one of the biggest mistakes of the whole case. If the police are investigating you or the questions start going beyond the basics, remember this. Silence feels awkward. Talking feels natural. But natural is not always smart. Stop trying to perform innocence and protect yourself. Now, if you have watched this video this far, well, I encourage you to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and leave me a comment what you would do if the police start asking you questions. I love to read comments. I read them at least 2 or 3 times a day for like 5-10 minutes at a time. I try to respond to as many as I can. I really do. If you don't know what to comment on who I remind you of. Some people are saying John Iguazamo, Jack Black. Someone mentioned Tom Cruise. I kind of like that one. Someone said Turtle from Entourage, hopefully the skinnier turtle, not the fatter turtle. Although both are great actors, great characters. If you are facing charges in the great state of Indiana, give me and my team a call here at the Marc Lopez Law Firm. We would love to talk about your options. But most importantly, I want you to remember this, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart. Always plead the fifth.